Hello, everyone. Welcome from the Managed Print Services Association. We're excited to have, this is our second live stream event for 2026, and we're excited to have our analyst guest here with us today. So we're getting ready to continue to kick off 2026 with our predictions live stream event. We appreciate the analysts who've been able to come back this year, kind of look back at the past predictions and then looking into the future with what's coming up. So we appreciate everybody who's joined us on the live stream. You can see all the different links where you can get access to materials from the Managed Print Services Association as a mouthful. So we like to say MPSA as well. So if you would like to look at more information, definitely check out our website, our LinkedIn company page, and also we have a YouTube page as a backup for some of our live stream events. Our analysts that we'll have today, we have Deborah Hawkins, Robert Palmer, I call him Bob, and Jay McBain. So we were excited to have them here, and they're going to actually introduce themselves here in a minute. But before we get to the topic that you're really interested in, I wanted to give you a brief overview of the Managed Print Services Association. This might be the first time that you're joining one of our events, and you may not be familiar with some of the services that we provide. But we're a community focused on managed print services. We also have added production print as an area, and we're looking at sharing best practices, education, trends that are happening in our space, not just in the U.S. but globally. So, and actually today we have analysts globally as well. So I think it's going to be a great time. But again, these are resources that we're trying to share with managed print services providers. So if you'd like, again, more information is available on our website, and we just launched a new website at the end of last year at yourmpsa.org. And there's lots of different benefits as a member, whether you're an individual, a dealer, whether you're a software company, an OEM, a finance company that's in our space. There's definitely something for everyone. We have live stream events. We have recognition for leadership in our industry. We also have opportunities to network with other managed print services professionals. We have our certification and a lot more. So definitely things are available to you for a very low cost, depending on where you fit in. If you're a dealer, it's $200 USD for the entire dealership. So that's a bargain. But again, depending on where you sit, we have a price that's right for you. And we hope that you will join us very soon. So with that, we're going to go ahead and switch gears. I'm going to get out of the way as far as the promotional information about the Managed Print Services Association. And I want to make sure we have time to go ahead and introduce our panel. So with that, what I'd like for everybody to do is, number one, welcome. Is to everybody would take a turn, just tell us who you are and tell us what you're doing right now. It's a new year, and it'd be great to hear more about what we're doing for 2026. And if we can, we'll let Deborah start. Ladies first. I appreciate you joining us.
Hey there, Eric. Thank you very much. My name is Deborah Hawkins from Keypoint Intelligence. I head up the workplace team of analysts at Keypoint. If you don't know us, we are a research, testing, and strategic insight house. What am I working on this year? It's all AI, right? It's all about AI. And then there's more AI. So that's very futuristic, and we're testing that, and we are doing research on that, and we're providing insight on that, and I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deborah. And Bob, can we go ahead and switch to you next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Palmer with IDC. For those of you who don't know IDC, we're a large global market research company with some 1,500 analysts around the world. I work with a small little team here in the U.S. Actually, we have a global team now. We just globalized our imaging and printing team. So we have about 20 or so analysts covering the imaging and printing space. I've been in the print industry for longer than I care to admit, about 35 years. My area of focus, like Deborah, starts with AI, but really there's several key categories that we're really closely following. One of those is modernization of print, which involves a lot around cloud, sustainability, the migration from traditional print services to more remote service delivery, that kind of thing. So we're doing a lot around print modernization, doing a lot around security, and also around channel convergence and sort of what's happening with the overall OEM landscape. So we're focusing on all of those areas.
All right, thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. And Jay.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Jay McBain. I'm a chief analyst at Omdia. I look, and I guess I wake up every day thinking about channels and partnerships, alliances, ecosystems, the business of the managed service provider, the managed print services provider, and the 66.7% of our $6 trillion industry that goes through partners, and the 96% of the overall TAM that is surrounded by partners. So happy to join today.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we have some diversity with from the different analysts here, which is really important because our dealers are in that same. Some of them are just doing print, some are doing full managed services and AI and cybersecurity and have a different way to go to market, the way how they lead with different services. So I think this will be really powerful for them to be able to address some topics. And if we don't cover them, everybody that's there, these analysts are available, afterwards. They have information that's available outside of the scope of our live stream. So definitely, if there's something that caught your ear and you're like, oh, I need to know a little bit more about that, definitely these analysts have more information after the live stream. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. What we wanted to do is kind of kick off with a top prediction. And ask each one of the analysts to talk about their top prediction for 2026. And with that, what I'd like to do is why don't we switch gears and I'll ask Jay, would you mind to start off with your top prediction for 2026?
Yeah, and let me just kind of frame up the market that we're in. And I tend to start at the very, very top. Our customers, across 27 industries, 193 countries, are going to grow at 2.7% this year. That's a global GDP number of 121 trillion. The tech industry makes up about 5% of that. It's going to be 6.07 trillion this year. Hardware, software, services, and telco, all in that number. And then when we kind of go down to the next level, I mentioned how much of that is surrounded by partners and how much they drive. So we look in every slice, and as we look at managed services, for example, overall, it's going to be $650 billion this year. So over 10% of our entire industry is now managed services. And last year it grew at 13%. This year it's going to grow at 11%. And now managed print makes up about 8 to 9% of that. And it's growing just shy of double digits this year. So a great opportunity as our customers are growing at 2.7%, to build a business that could grow at least 4x, in terms of what our customers' industries and the customers that they serve are growing at. So the prediction this year is that managed print continues to be a very strong inclusion in a very strong overall managed services. We have 82% of end clients outsourcing more this year than they did last year, and they're obviously looking end to end, up and down the stack from a FinOps perspective and other things to include more and more and more in terms of predictable and operational expenses. So my prediction would be, let's go.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. We're hopefully we get to double digits, but it's that's great. That's great to hear, and I'm sure everybody else is looking at how to make that operational and make it a real thing for them. So I appreciate that. So, and actually we have coming up next in a couple of weeks. We have Executive Connection Summit in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we're looking forward to that. So again, being in, I call it in hugging distance or maybe sometimes throat choking distance of dealers and partners there to, hear what's going on and really meet everybody on the ground and see how things are going. So it's good stuff is coming up. So appreciate that overview, a good macro view of what's going on. Deborah, would you like to go ahead and go next with your prediction?
Yeah, sure. Mine's a bit more micro, I guess, but spans both IT and print. It's about service going remote and the tools that will be required for that. And something that we've started to call hybrid service excellence is becoming a bit of a more of a focus for the office technology industry, blending those remote and on-site offerings with new tools and technology. And I think that service excellence is much more than just the tools. It's also understanding clients' needs and their preferences, balancing the whole interaction and retaining the personal touch, but also achieving efficiency. So the hybridity is about getting both right and getting that right for the customer. And the race is really on, from the vendor perspective, as well as from the reseller perspective, to really appreciate what the customer is asking for today. And why this is new, the market is shifting very much from on-site first to remote first. Vendors want to find that greater efficiency and save resources. End customers want the same IT look and feel of remote service, and the two worlds are really blending quickly.
Okay, that's interesting, and I know, and we'll probably come to it later, but how AI and just changes in print consumption is changing all that as well from a serviceability perspective. We've gone through a lot of changes over the last 5 years, so it's very dynamic. Okay, Bob, you're next. What's your what prediction would you like to talk about?
All right. Well, mine actually kind of ties into what both Jay and Deborah talked about, and like Jay, like maybe frame things up a little bit, because I agree with a lot of what he said. I focus, more specifically on the managed print and document services market. That's really where my area of coverage lies, and where I tend to focus a lot of my efforts these days. And we're predicting that the SMB market for MPS is going to grow from about 2.6 billion to 3.1 in by 2029. So we're not really showing double-digit growth, but we're showing growth. And so when you think about that in the context of a market for print that's in secular decline, where vendors are struggling anywhere and everywhere to try and drive profitability and figure out how they can survive, MPS is still a growth category, and it's almost amazing to me. When you look at the numbers out there in terms of how many dealers have yet to take on MPS, and how many of those that are kind of struggling to figure out how to get out of the traditional legacy model of clicks and service-based revenue, and get into MPS where there's growth. So with that as a framework, I think one of the things that I want to focus on is just how this evolution of change in our market is accelerating so quickly, and how technology is driving that, and it's impacting everything in terms of hardware and service delivery, as Deborah talked about. One of the things that we're looking at is AI, and how is AI going to impact the market. And one of the questions we tend to talk about AI a lot in terms of how are we going to use it as an organization? How are we going to drive efficiencies? What's it going to do in terms of our employment model, and all of those things? We haven't focused a lot in terms of what's AI going to do specifically, change the market for print-related services. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is around how do these technology advances go? How are these advances going to impact hardware? And one of the things that we're looking at is we see a new class of devices that will be coming to the market starting in this year and moving throughout the end of this year and on into 2028. And we're predicting that by the end of 27, 40% of new MFPs sold will be classified as what we call AI MFPs. And so what is the AI MFP? I mean, I think, currently we have a lot of vendors that talk about AI and AI functionality for their devices, but really these are standard MFPs where AI functionality and features are delivered through cloud-based connectivity and cloud-based platforms and solutions that can either be connected to or enabled through the MFP. But more and more in the future, we're going to see hardware shift to more hybrid models that combine on-device intelligence, embedded neural processors with cloud capabilities to create a new class of product. And these products are going to be categorized not necessarily by their print and copy and scan and fax features, but they're going to be defined by a suite of intelligent capabilities that you can that sort of wrap around the hardware, and that you can leverage to to understand usage patterns, reduce downtime, more seamlessly move to predictive and preemptive service models like Deborah talked about, integrate with document management systems more effectively, do all of this in a more secure manner by keeping data on site, allow organizations to take advantage of AI capabilities at a cheaper, in a less costly way, right? Because you're no longer paying for these AI services through the cloud. So we think this is an important thing to keep an eye on, because it's going to not only mean change in the way hardware looks, it's going to mean significant changes in the types of services that we can deliver and the types of service efficiencies we can achieve.
Well, that's great. Well, and we just can't stop there, because that topic is a big topic. And so I think as we transition over to like the additional topics we want to talk about, we might as well just stay on AI. You've already opened the Pandora's box there, so I think it's a good place to continue to stay on. I mean, this year we've seen significant investments going on. We've seen just recently announcements from Amazon for layoffs of 16,000 people, and AI was rooted out as one of the reasons why that happened. And again, there's more and more functionality and capabilities that are coming out. So why don't we just stay on the topic? Who would like to jump on the next part of that discussion from your perspective? Okay, Deborah.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in there. So we've been looking at, what was the actual rate of adoption of AI at customer sites in the last year. And, 1 year ago, we were all in and saying, oh, yeah, this is going to push print down so much more, same as everybody was looking at the level of jobs that were being cut as a result. We didn't really see that much activity yet. I don't know if anybody else has observed the same, but, it's like everybody's looking at, do we make this investment now, really looking at the ROI, but not really adopting yet. So that's what I've been seeing.
Okay.
Yeah, I could kind of jump in from what Bob said. Anytime there's a technology shift in our industry, and we've gone through major shifts through mainframe and client server and cloud, and now we're into this new 20-year era. If 40% of the new devices, come with extra, functionality and, kind of new possibilities or opportunities, we've always said in the channel, where there's mystery, there's margin. So while you're trying to figure out, for example, managed services, if the customer's buying $50,000 of this new product, trying to figure out how to get $50,000 divided by 36 over the first, 3 years is one element, that 1x multiplier. But every time there's new technology, there is advisory and consulting, there is design and architecture, there is implementation, and especially integration. As Bob talked about, integrating with systems like document management and all these other systems. There's a ton of integration work. So now we're not talking about managed services as much as trying to move that 1x multiplier to 2x or 3x. So partners are asking these questions now of vendors to say, what is that multiplier effect? If it is a $50,000 deal, can I get to 100 or 150,000 before, during, and after the transaction? And it makes me less reliant on selling the actual product and making a margin. When I'm, instead of making 5, 10, 20%, whatever, I'm now moving to make 200% of the deal. That's what skills do I need? What programs do I need to get in? The certifications, the competencies. How do I become more around that customer journey? And then AI is this trigger. We have AI related services for partners growing at 35.3% compounded every year from now until 2030. Of any opportunity across the entire tech space, hardware, software, telco, this is actually the #1 fastest growing place. So we got to figure out how we grow our AI related services at a multiplier much higher than this new hardware and these new opportunities are going to be there on the product side.
That's right. And Bob, do you have something else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Deborah and Jay both did a pretty good job there. I mean, I think our research tends to show that there's still some pretty significant increase in spending projected around AI, particularly at the enterprise level, as we move into 2026. I think one of the things that we're watching closely is this kind of as you kind of move from traditional AI to agentic AI, it's shifting the spend around kind of more away from infrastructure and more into platforms and applications around that, right? So, and again, I think as Jay talked about, this speaks a lot to the level of integration that you're doing within your hardware and the level of integration that you're doing with the various programs and platforms and services that you bring to market. I think just the other part of this, which I think we've sort of talked about, but maybe haven't explicitly said, is that channel partners increasingly tell us that they're looking for more and more guidance around how and where they themselves should be investing in AI, and not just leveraging it to improve their own efficiencies within their organization and improve margin and profitability, but also what are we going to do with it? How can we monetize it? This channel tends to operate on, how do I make money from it? So if I'm going to go out and invest in something, it's great if we can reduce our costs and get more efficient. That's nice, but ultimately I gotta drive more revenue, and I gotta pay. I gotta make margin and increase our margins and pay our sales folks. So I think those are things that everyone's kind of struggling with right now, but we do see continued investment around AI kind of in all sectors. Yeah.
No, that's right. I think so for our managed print services insider group that we have, that's when we talk about AI. It's like, so what do I do? What do I sell? It's and how, and we actually have some very some great ideas that have been coming from some of the dealers, and so that insiders group, it's been pretty powerful just to have dealers kind of talk to each other and then see what's working, not working. Those are typically not in the same competitive marketplace to try to figure out what's going on. But definitely dealers are reaching out to OEMs, software vendors, like what's the solution? So that's a even bigger topic, but yeah, Bob?
I think that's a great point. And I think just to add to that, and I think kind of the good news, bad news sort of scenario, I think is, we did a survey at the end of the last year where we asked buyers and end users, is AI going to influence your decisions around print acquisition and the providers you partner with? And absolutely it is. And then when you ask them, like, where do they see AI as being effective for them and helping them drive their organization, it's in the typical areas you would expect, right? Around, again, predictive and preemptive service, improving service, improving security, driving to a more automated security model, simplified fleet management, automated formatting and creating a better user experience. All of these things that on the surface would seem to indicate, hey, there might be opportunities here to drive additional incremental revenue, right? Maybe we can charge for some of these value add capabilities through the implementation of AI. The challenge, of course, is that you've got the flip side of that, the OEMs who are looking to always create differentiation and higher value for themselves, and how much of that gets sort of built into the device and almost offered as a standard feature as we move forward, and it gets harder and harder to monetize. So I think we kind of have to deal with both of those things.
Yeah,
but I think in the near term, there's real opportunity for dealers to take advantage of AI and drive incremental revenue.
Yeah, Jay?
Yeah, I want to say as well, I mean, when we walk into a new 20-year era, new products, new mystery, new opportunities, but there's also risk on the other side, and kind of right time probably in the call to talk about risk. AI favors platforms. Every morning we wake up to a major $100 billion partnership between NVIDIA and OpenAI or someone. And so there's $7 trillion being spent to build out these data centers. And it tends to favor, in platform economies, which we're in, tend to favor the largest of companies. So we saw the three hyperscalers, separate. We saw the biggest SaaS companies in the world, Salesforce and ServiceNow and Workday and HubSpot, Marketo, NetSuite, separate from the pack. In cyber last year, we have 6,500 vendors, but you started to see Palo Alto buy CyberArk and Google bought Wiz and Cisco had bought Splunk, these $30 billion deals that the top 5 start to separate. And so we saw this at distribution last year. Microsoft cut 2/3 of their distributors in October. The top 5, are the beneficiaries of that. So you break that down into print, you break that down into the market we're in. The risk for dealers, the risk for MSPs is the larger players start to take on a bigger role. One of the biggest pieces of research we did in the year, and this took 2 years and thousands of analyst hours to do. We would have loved to ask ChatGPT to do this for us, but it was to rank the top partners in the world. And we don't have a global Fortune 500 list in our industry. For the trillions that we drive, we kind of don't know what it looks like. And to get on the list of the top 1,000, you have to be driving about $30 million of pure tech services, no resale, all tech services. And to lead the list, Accenture has 779,000 employees. But the top down, when you start to look at it, the top 30 companies, the 20 GSIs plus 10 like CDW and Insight and others, deliver pretty close to, the top 30 deliver more than the next 970 on the list. The 970 on the list deliver more than the next million companies combined. So as a group, the top partners in the world competing for these managed print services represent almost 2/3 of all the tech services in the world. It is really, really top heavy. It's not 80-20, it's not 95-5. It's pretty much 99.90.1. And now when you look at this, you think, well, no, they're covering the banks and the public sector, and that's really not my space. Well, Accenture makes an acquisition every week. The GSIs all combined make an acquisition every 7 business hours. Every one of those acquisitions is down market, winning in spaces, in industries, in geography, and buyer types and segments. And they're going down market quickly. And they're bringing in and that's their way to grow as Doge affects public and as, the bigger banks and pharmaceuticals start to invest in AI. They're reducing costs in other areas. They're coming hard into mid-market, obviously, into medium, even the high side of small. And so when we broke down the managed services number, that 650 billion, we were shocked that the top 20 GSIs, you don't think of Accenture or Deloitte or KPMG or any of them as managed service providers, but as a group, they deliver 24% of that number. And now you've had Kyndryl break away from IBM and DXC come up. These are massive, massive companies that just don't hang out at banks. So when we talk about sweeping in managed print services into a larger contract and then going down market, this is a huge risk in a platform economy that tends to favor large companies.
And kind of talking about big companies, why don't we transition over to consolidation in our market, right? So we have, the big players, at least from an OEM perspective, and dealers and everything else. We have a lot of changing, and like Jay said, we have dealers that are taking it on, other companies that are smaller for specific regions, or so. Why don't we switch gears there? Last year we talked about Xerox and Lexmark. I call it Lexrox, but it's more it's Xerox now. But that dynamic has changed radically since last year, and so maybe we can. I don't want to just focus on them, but talk about consolidation in our managed print services marketplace. And Bob disappeared, but maybe he'll join us back here in just.
Oh, I'm here. I disappeared.
Well, the video's not there, but you're back.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. All right.
We'll start with market consolidation.
You want me to start on it?
Go ahead, Bob.
Apologies. Sorry, I couldn't hear. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's something that we're constantly asked about, and I think if you look at it from the OEM side, number one, as I said, I've covered this business a long, long time, and I used to create this single slide where I would show the list of all the vendors in the print and imaging space, and then sort of how they've transitioned into, it moved from, okay, this company acquired this company and how it's moved from this number. The last time I created that slide was about 25 years ago or 20 years ago. And there were about 80 vendors on the list that had moved down to about 40. And now we're down to about 12 global vendors worldwide, right? Somewhere around 11 to 12 global vendors worldwide. The general consensus seems to be that we're going to continue to see contraction in the market. The number everyone seems to throw around is like the market's large enough to settle in on 6 primary brands, 6 to 7 primary brands. I don't know, I can't speak to whether that number is the right number or not, but I can tell you that we definitely expect to see continued contraction. If you look at some of the recent deals that have happened, the Atria Alliance and the alliance between Fuji and Konica Minolta, I mean, on the one hand, those are positioned as partnerships to drive more efficiencies. I think near term, we look at those more as partnerships that are driving increased buying power for these companies so that they can gain access to components and circuit, circuit boards and chipsets at a more effective price. We don't see the highly touted ability to kind of rationalize and reduce redundancies around manufacturing and scalability of manufacturing yet. The reality is there's not a lot of commonality in hardware between all of these companies. That there's still a lot of stuff that's different. And so until they settle in on a single platform, you're not going to see a lot of those kind of benefits. And once they do settle in on a single platform, it likely means that's a precursor to, some bigger outcome between these partnerships. So likely 3 vendors consolidating into one and 2 vendors consolidating into one, that kind of thing. You could look at the ownership of the alliances and you could tell where that's likely to go, right? Ricoh has 80% ownership in the Atria Alliance. Fujifilm has 75% ownership in the deal with Konica Minolta. That means they have all the say in anything that's being done, right? So you can take that for what it's worth. You can kind of project where that's likely to go. Xerox and Lexmark still interesting to me, interesting in lots of ways. Xerox is it's just a strange thing to look at when you think of a company. Their share price is now somewhere well below $3 a share. I think their market cap now is below 300 million. So here's a company that just in the last couple of years spent 1.5 billion to buy Lexmark and however much, so much to buy IT Savvy, and yet a market cap of 300 million. On the other hand, what are they doing? 6-7 billion a year in revenue. They're a valuable company. They have more value than their market cap. They certainly have products and solutions and technologies and channel and go to market and all of these capabilities, but all of that is not reflective of where they are in the market. So you just have to wonder what is this going to shake out to. I'll stop talking because I'll talk forever. So anyone else?
Yeah, maybe there's a chance for me to interject. I wanted to talk about some of the things that Jay mentioned, either separation versus the global big ones. And, separation is really not happening yet in the print industry. It's very much going towards who are the global big ones going to be, like Bob just mentioned. And they really are coming out. We're already kind of solidifying who are those global 4 going to be. But if I look at the channel, I really see that whole blending of channel and the merging of who's going towards a diversified product offering and who's going towards a dedicated product offering. And I don't say one is wrong versus the other. There's a place for all of them. So there seems to be in the print channel a number of resellers that are going to really, really concentrate on doing print really well and get that right. And they don't want to go with any of the other stuff. And maybe they just have a 10-year trajectory and then that's it. And there's others that are going full scale into diversification, whether that means that they are acquiring and expanding into totally new areas outside of print, adjacent to print, everything else. And so, yeah, global big ones are coming as well as lots of diversification is happening.
Yeah, it's a great point. If you look at every hardware and software category, over time they mature. And this platform economy is somewhere between 3 and 5 companies. Even in hyperscalers, the big 3, Oracle is knocking on the door to kind of join that. But, if you flip over to PCs, from the 80s and 90s, you've got Dell, Lenovo, HP driving, over 2/3 of that market. If you include Acer and Asus, 5 companies are driving almost 90%, with Apple driving 90% of the market. So this happens. And, Bob did a good job of kind of walking through the alliances. And then you add HP, and you're kind of at 4, groups at this point, companies and or alliances that are going to lead this market, through 2026 and have the most capacity and capital to go invest in AI, drive this, 40% changeover in product. So when you're a partner, you're trying to think, where do I hook my caboose? What train is leaving the station? Can I be a single product company? The answer is no. To get at the market, to get at the customers, we probably have relationships built, across all 4, and they're not all favored. But the fact of the matter is understanding a more compressed, consolidated industry, but again, focusing on where the multiplier is. Where you're going to hook your caboose is not who has the highest incentive this month or the biggest spiff for the quarter. It's going to be where I can sell $150,000 in services on $50,000 in product and make money in terms of surrounding that customer and adding value, to a customer who wants us in the room, to have those deep conversations and obviously drive them to be better than their competitors, which is the whole reason we do what we do.
Very good.
Yeah, I would maybe just add something to what Deborah said, Eric, because I think she's raised some good points, and I think we agree there's kind of like 2 groups of office equipment providers that are sort of either print-centric or have branched out, and it's sort of the 80-20 rule. You got about 20% of the guys that have figured out how to transform, and the rest of the guys are still stuck in the old model. But I think from our perspective, we see a real need towards this shift to a blending of IT and print. And what we're seeing at the enterprise level is this transformative shift around IT management, where enterprises are moving towards the adoption of a unified IT asset management platform. These dashboard-driven platforms that provide real-time visibility across the entire device ecosystem. So they're not just managing printers, they're managing PCs and workstations and collaboration tools and printing devices all under a single platform. And that provides them with, direct insight with data that can inform decision-making across everything and not just, one thing. And so while that's happening at the enterprise level, it's going to move down. We've already got these service providers and technology providers and print OEMs too that are looking to move this to channel partners to help them leverage these platforms. If you think about things like what HP's doing with workforce experience platform and others. So what this means is that we're going to see a continued shift towards channel providers that have this IT backbone combined with the ability to deliver print. And that's going to be very, very important. And so that means we're expecting to see continued convergence in the channel and movement towards MSPs, even IT resellers and even service providers that historically have said we want nothing to do with print because it's highly complex, requires a lot of feet on the street to service and so forth. But as we move to these packaged infrastructures that take all of that away from requiring feet on the street and shifts to the OEM, we see more and more of the channel providers jumping in. So
very good. I want to cover one more topic before we close out, and sustainability. So we've seen a lot of changes around there, especially in our marketplace, U.S. and in Europe. And I don't know, Deborah, would you mind just talk about what you're thinking now about sustainability? I think because you're with your global hat on.
Yeah, sure. We hear a lot of times that Europe is leading the way. As soon as we get into legislation and regulation, we tend to slow down. So that's a tough area, but there are some key things going on with right to repair that are really kind of pushing our industry to change the way they do things, the way they build hardware, the way they extend the life of hardware, the way they provide the service related to the hardware. And, we asked a lot of buyers also, where does sustainability fit for them? And it's way behind the big ticket items like security, but it is up and coming, and it's becoming of increasing importance, not just because of the regulation and the legislation, but because they feel they need to do the right thing. They also have to comply. They have to prove that they're doing the right thing to a certain extent. So buyers are looking for solutions that offer less waste, offer high energy efficiency is one that is really, really top of the stack. Ethical sourcing as well, the carbon footprint, not just one thing related to sustainability, lots of things. And really, really surprising, I think, is that buyers are still worried about this whole collection and recycling. As an industry, we thought we had that all sewed up years ago. We've been doing it for decades, but the buyer still doesn't understand how to do it, and they're still throwing stuff in the trash, quite honestly. So, yeah, there's going to be a new look at sustainability.
Yeah, there's a huge asterisk on this right now, and whether you kind of listen in on Davos last week, you follow the daily news. We've got a 3-member team that is dedicated to sustainability. That's all they do every day. They wake up thinking about it. 99% of their time is outside of the United States right now. So anywhere inside the United States, the word has been taken off of websites of the major providers, major partners who have led in recycling and reuse and all the 13 R's have slowly walked back that. It's a geopolitical issue, pretty much affecting one country. But if you interview partners, as we do, 25,000 partners in the world, Europe is absolutely leading the charge. Asia Pacific, Latin America, all the other regions, even up to Canada, are driving kind of this thought process. But we're in a momentary lapse in the biggest market in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I fit right in between the two of you, because I agree with everything Deborah said, and I also agree that it's less of a focus here in the U.S. But one of the things, we did some. I do an NPS benchmark survey every couple of years, and the last one that I ran showed that 71% of companies identified meeting their own environmental goals around reduced energy, waste, carbon footprint, so forth, within their top 2 factors in their decision to implement NPS. And the reasons behind that are really around compliance. So they're looking at what's happening in Europe. They're looking at how many of those regulatory trends are moving to the US, starting in California and going elsewhere. And they sort of look at it as there's writing on the wall. Yes, it's not as emphasized here in the US, even de-emphasized, as Jay pointed out, with the current political climate and so forth. I think most of them are assuming, most companies are assuming at some point we're going to be forced to comply with regulatory issues that we have to meet. And so it's still high on the list of why companies adopt NPS, and it's still an important factor to consider if you're a service provider in terms of sort of driving your value proposition.
Very good. Well, there's more topics that I know that we should cover and could cover, but due to the amount of time we have, we want to go ahead and we'll stop our live stream now. I appreciate everyone making time to join us, and I appreciate all the analysts that were here and providing feedback. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to the Managed Print Services Association. We have at info@yournpsa.org. You can send us an email. You can also put information in the chat, and we'd love to get back to you. And if there's something that you'd like to know about, we can get you connected with the analysts as well to talk about what you want to talk about if we didn't cover it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I guess Happy New Year again. This is, I guess, not too late. And look forward to working with you guys in the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye now.
Bye.